Welcome to the Possible Creative Podcast, where we talk with smart creative people doing smart creative work, which inspires others like you to pursue their own smart creative work. If you want to be more creative or bring your creative work to the next level, this podcast is for you, whether it's music, game dev, film, writing, art, dance, or any other expression of yourself, really. On this podcast, I invite people who will inspire you, break self-limiting beliefs, and give you permission to pursue your creative vision and to do it at the best of your ability. I'm your host, Patrick Wayne. Hi. Thanks for watching or listening, whichever you're doing. Today on this podcast, Siobhan Vanaman, senior producer at Niantic Labs, makers of Pokémon Go, Harry Potter Wizards Unite. Prior to Niantic, Siobhan worked on millions of titles, like a million, not literally, but like a million, at both NBC Universal, the Walt Disney Company, on little IPs you may have heard of, maybe like Marvel, Jurassic Park, Frozen, Maleficent, much, much more. She's graciously agreed to share some of her journey into the video game industry with us. But first, please like, subscribe, and comment on this episode. It really does help share more of these stories with folks like yourself. Spread the word about these inspiring people who are doing cool stuff on this podcast. The whole point is to inspire people to go after and chase what they want to do, at least see it through to its conclusion one way or another. Once this podcast crosses 1,000 subscribers, I will sing the intro to the following episode. But I will not sing until then. So please subscribe so we can make that happen. Siobhan, welcome to the podcast. So you are currently at Niantic, right? Yeah.
Okay. Senior producer, loving it. Niantic's a really, really cool place to work. They're doing really cool stuff all the time. There's like a million different projects that they're thinking about at any minute that I love to like listen to and see what everybody's doing. It's a really cool work environment. Probably one of the best ones I've been in a long time.
Yeah. And for a lot of people who are listening to this, they may not even know what a producer is. Do you mind explaining that real quick?
I look at it like in two different ways. One, I was a designer before I was a producer, and I would just get so stressed out about like whether we would get it done or if it would get done well and if we could execute on it. And it really just clogged up any ability to be a very good designer. So I was like, I'm already being a producer in my head. I should probably just do that. And so I basically take that on in terms of like, that also means when things don't work, it's on me, so that it's not on the team. It's not on the folks that are working their asses off. And I don't want that stress to be on people. So it's like, I'm already taking that stress on. So it's on me.
Yeah.
So the successes are the team, the failures are my fault. Like that's kind of one thing I really sort of stand for, just to buffer people who are doing all of the like nitty gritty, and not weigh them down with that. And then the other thing is just like basically a servant. Like what can I do to make your job easier? I'm not an animator. So what can I do so that you just focus on animating and don't focus on things that, will stress you out or are a problem, like doing licenses or like doing all this or paying like contractors or anything that needs to get done? That's on me. So I kind of look at it like that. Like, how can I clear up the way for them to execute?
Yeah. I think that's really interesting, going from a creative to more of a management role, but it's just sort of a natural progression for you because you found yourself already taking that on. And so well, let's make it official then.
Pretty much.
That's something that I related to because I came up through design and creative, but I always found myself in the heat of trying to solve the other problems too. And even though I'm more divorced from the day-to-day creative now, I'm happier because I'm just able to focus on us. I'm actually able to just focus on the things that are going to distract me from doing the initial creative work. So I totally relate to that journey. Can you go into kind of where you started originally?
So I started as, oh my gosh, let's go way back. I started at Disney's Blue Sky intern group, which, no, I didn't. I started at a really small company called Papaya that was doing games for Disney. So, and that I did while I was in college. I've always had a job. And so I got really lucky probably junior year of college, where I got to leave Starbucks behind and actually work at a place where I wanted to be career-wise. And it was a lot of like doing stuff. It was kind of picking up all different kinds of things. It was QA. It was, just transfer or like changing videos and Fmod. It was just like all these things that were like, we don't have a specific person to do this, so can you do it? So I learned a lot of like random stuff, which was super enjoyable. I even got to write a little bit for the Coraline game, which was super fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where I got introduced to Disney. And once I graduated, internship was over and I really needed something. So I went out and talked to this guy, Luigi Priori, who knew my brother from Disney and knew me from working at Papaya. And so that is where I kind of got my in there. And oh my gosh, I'm so bad at this. It was Chris Takami, not Luigi, who I first talked to. Poor Chris. I'm so sorry. I forgot my whole past with him. That was the Blue Kite intern. Then I talked to Luigi. Then I got into just like managing the narrative for all of the Marvel gaming universe. Was like basically the thing they brought me in on. I was like, I like
Just
to
that.
read. I like narrative. I like stories.
Yeah.
But just like anything, it turned into a billion other things, like which was a lot of project management, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, make sure you have all the final Marvel approved characters in one spot. And that's obviously where we met with Marvel Avengers Initiative.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, working on the
worst name ever.
It wasn't a great name. No, it was an Avengers title.
That's what I realized. People can't spell, and so
no.
How can they expect them to find your game if they have no clue how to spell initiative?
Yeah, it's a good point. Like when you name something, make sure people can spell it. It's kind of important,
especially in mobile games. It doesn't matter as much, like
if Google can correct it for you, it's a little bit better.
Like Disco Elysium is a crazy cool name, but I don't need to know it to find it.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm into indie games, I'll be down that road. Whereas mobile is like, people just need to find stuff really quickly and download it. And the moment that their interest moves on to something else, you've lost them forever.
Mm-hmm.
So stupid.
Yeah, it's okay. Did you always want to work in games? When did the interest in video games start to take hold for you?
Oh, like I think it take hold at the earliest. Do you know the Super Nintendo, that big mat that had the red and blue spots on it, and you would do like track, and you'd like yeah. That's where I first. That's like the first video game I ever played, and then some other things. But then really, my heart and soul got into it with SNES and just playing Donkey Kong with my brother and sister and Mario Kart and Super Mario World. I mean, it's just like Super Mario 64, everything. Those, and then of course Zelda. Those were the cornerstone of me being like, I want to make experiences like this. I want to make stories like this.
Mm-hmm. And did you grow up in Southern California in the LA area?
I grew up in Wyoming.
Okay. So this is something I have found really fascinating. The idea that, well, I grew up away from the entertainment capital of the world, and the idea that you can make a living doing these things never dawned on me till I was in college, when I went, why can't I do that? Surely someone gets paid to do that. But you just grew up, that was like something else that was untouchable. Like you could never reach that, the ability to do that for a living.
Like it wasn't like that for me. Like
so you kind of knew
because no, it wasn't that I knew so much as that it's just like I was like, you can do anything. And so that's what I wanted to do. I wasn't really like the fact that it had to be a faraway place or anything. I don't know why I thought that. Maybe I just had like really motivating parents. I don't think that was it either. They weren't very motivating. I love them, but they were always very practical and not the type to be like, you can be anybody, you could be president. I don't know. Maybe it's because I really did have that mentorship in my brother, in that all through high school, he was just like the cool kid, the guy that like started the computer program for the high school. And and he did like this random like public access TV show where he like ran around Yellowstone. And it was like, so he was already doing these things that I think probably would have felt untouchable to me.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing him just do them was just like, yeah, it's clearly achievable because look at how he's going. And then, high school is when he was in college, and he got a job right out of college. He went to USC, and it was just like he kind of set that path for me.
Mm-hmm.
So it never felt scary. It always felt absolutely doable. It makes me wonder like how terrified he must have been, because he didn't have that. But I really think that that's probably what made me not think twice that it was possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an amazing thing to have that role model. That would have changed things for me. And so for you, it was just like, I want to go make games, and you were working at Starbucks, and you're just looking for opportunities at that point, right? To make it happen.
Yeah, in college, it was like, I was trying to take classes that I thought would make me better at creating content. So I'm an English major. So I was reading a lot, which to me was like, that's kind of the fuel for the fire for me. And I didn't really care about what my degree was going to be. I just wanted to learn the things that would make me best at working in the game industry. So I wanted to take classes that had me read a lot. I wanted to take classes about behavioral science so that I learned how, people think and what inspires them and what motivates them. I took computer classes so that I could get the practical sense of like, this is how you put shit together. This is how you build things within a computer. And that was the stuff that was important to me. And then everything else was just like, I'm just checking the list off to get the degree. And it took me like probably 2 years into college to really refine the things I wanted to learn and start putting a back seat to things that other people wanted me to learn. So that's why I really was kind of careful in choosing my major to something that would give me the most classes that would be most valuable to me. So like I could have taken like game design classes, although the university I went to, Chapman University, didn't have a lot of them. They only had a few. I could have done that, but I would have been bogged down with all the stuff that I didn't actually want to learn. I wanted all the basics of, how to work in Unreal Engine, how to work in Unity came much later. It wasn't out at the time. I wanted that, but I didn't want like a degree's worth of that. Mm-hmm. So again, that's why I went English major.
Yeah, so you took a more broad approach to it in general.
And also I love reading. So I was like, this is the most bang for my buck in terms of like, I could just sit and read and then write a paper about it. Like it's so much easier.
Yeah, that's hilarious. For me in my college degree, I just was like, what is the quickest way to get this piece of paper and I can get on with whatever it is I want to do. So I literally browsed the entire catalog and just looked for the lowest number of hours required to get a degree. And I got that.
Yeah. And I think that that's exactly how you should look at your education and like, what do I actually want to learn? Not whatever, I need to learn for a specific degree, because unless you're going to be, a doctor or a scientist mm-hmm. or anything like that, you don't need to, it's those jobs, you're obligated to know all the things because mm-hmm. that's the job. Well, the job in creating entertainment is having good ideas. So what do I really need? And if I had a nickel for every time I've looked at someone's major on a resume, I would have no money because I never look at it. I could not tell you. I've been hiring manager on so many different careers, and I know all these people. I could not tell you what they did.
Yeah, the first thing I look at is what projects have you made? Like, mm-hmm. what is your portfolio? If it's a junior level role, then I might look if they have a degree at all. Maybe.
It depends on what it is. If it's a designer, like I want to see something you designed, even if it's something you just designed in your house. Like, Spencer, my husband's a really good example of that, where his first design job, he just spent the weekend learning how to code and coded a level. And that was basically his resume. And that worked like I mean, that stuff works. Especially if it is a really junior level first opening. It's like, I'm not showing you that I have experience. I'm showing that I can do the job.
And that you can learn it if needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think especially if you just want to break into an industry, just showing that you can learn by showing that you've done the work that they do is enough to get in the door, usually. And then if you just want to do it vocationally, like not as a job, you don't need a degree for that. Like I've always felt like if you're not motivated enough to learn it on your own, you're probably not motivated enough to finish the project. They go hand in hand. They're the same discipline.
It's fine if you don't, if you do that side job and realize this is going to take more work than I'm willing to put in it. That's really fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. You don't need to do that. You can keep it as a hobby, or you can, just play video games and enjoy them without getting into the extreme pain of making them.
Right. If you're really into music, starting to make music and pursue it changes your relationship with it. And the same with video games or painting. Like you can't stop analyzing things once you get immersed in that. And so it is a bit of a curse.
I don't know. It depends. I've been playing Resident Evil Village, and it has been a long time since I've been scared by a video game. It's been a really long time, because you design so many of them that you're like, you look at the map and you're like, I know what they're going to do here. Or, you just see those little signs of game design. And so it kind of ruins it and like breaks the veil that was over you to make you feel like it's a really spooky thing. And even though I knew that still happened, spoiler alert, I was in the level, basically the creepy dolls. I don't know if you played it. Creepy doll level that's so insane. And I saw this map and it had like a loop, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to be chased by something here. So even though that broke it, the way the creature came out, the way they did sound, the way they reduced the draw distance on the flashlight to like 2 feet in front of you, I was just like huddled in a blanket and I was just like screeching and squealing the entire time. And it was like the first time in a very long time, it felt so. I still can have those moments.
Yeah.
It may just take a little bit more though.
Yeah, and often they're like the weird sort of half-broken games like Phasmophobia that do it for me, where it's like it's kind of janky in a way that makes it unpredictable at first. Kind of half-broken, so you don't know what to expect.
That's cool. I like that.
Versus the highly polished, perfectly crafted thing that is more predictable and more,
You're totally right. I felt like other things that have really immersed me is things like Papers, Please. And it's so simple and exactly what it is that it's like you're sitting there and you're like, this is my life. I do work at the border. What about my son? He's sick. Like you really get wrapped into it because it's just so simple, concise, and really speaks to you as a human being of like, this is a task that people have to do, stamping passports. Yes. But then there's this level of like emotion that they add in a way that's super clever.
Yeah, I think that often one of the advantages if you're doing it on your own or you're independent or you're, smaller budget that you have is that you're not trying to appeal to 10 million people and get Metacritic scores. And like you can make something that resonates very deeply with a smaller set of people, which gives you the ability to surprise even game makers. And I've always, I'm really into the idea of niche design now because niches can be big on the internet. If you can find that one person who's really like that one thing, there's probably a million of them out there. You just have to find them.
I mean, that is absolutely the beauty of, everybody's got a computer, everybody's got a phone. You can absolutely touch anybody, and those niche audiences become much larger once you can reach across the globe with them. But it's still like, it's still something I think about a lot. It's like, I have that in my head, that like product person in my head that's like, do you want to make a game for a niche group of people? All right, yeah, you can. Just have really good expectations for how many you're going to get. So it's like I always still have that person that's like, why would I make a game for the niche market so small? But I think you're right. I'm just come from that big corporate background where it's like, you know, what are we going to spend our money on, and are we going to get our return on investment? That's still kind of there, and
the investments are so large, you know, and where you and I have our day jobs, that you have to figure out how to get as many people in as possible. That's the job.
But occasionally you get that chance, even in the big corporate area, to be like, all right, our expectations aren't for really high engagement or really high revenue or daily active users. Our goal is to make something really cool and fun that people share, and it's, you know, small and interesting and new. Disney wasn't interested in doing that. Universal wasn't, but Niantic is. Niantic is interested in making these experiences that, oh yeah, they're for a small group of people. Great, let's make something for them. And you don't usually hear that in, you know, anything that has a board.
Well, the precursor to, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the precursor to Pokemon Go is Ingress, which was very much a niche sort of fringe MMO title that only the coolest people, nerdiest people played and knew about. But it created a place where they can experiment and innovate and try new things and learn, and not be beholden to trying to make something perfect and amazing and with a big IP on it.
Yep.
I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, that's definitely in the company's DNA, and I love it. I briefly worked on a project that was really surprising and different, and was that. But I've been moved around to a lot of projects as of lately, so I'm on something different now. But it was really cool. The team that was working on it was super cool to work with because of like what their priorities were. It wasn't monetization, you know. It wasn't that stuff that I usually have to talk about.
What so now that you're in a producer role, you're working with a lot of creatives. What do you think ultimately leads to, you know, burnout? People who are like really do love what they're doing, but they just get to a place where they just can't give the same level of output anymore. What do you think is? Go ahead.
It's, you know, not being listened to, and that just happens all the time. Like, people are telling you what their problems are, what's hard for them. They're always telling you, and it's like, you as a person that has the ability to change it, like a producer or an executive, like, you gotta just listen to them and see what they're saying. Like, what I'm working on right now isn't, you know, exciting for me. Okay, great. Let's finish up this project. Here's some other options I think that could be really cool for you, and talk to them. It's like having that, the voice, and I keep seeing it, and I've seen it throughout my career. It doesn't mean like the company's a bad company, but you just kind of mute some voices, especially when you're thinking of like big picture. So when it's like one person is stressed out and they're telling you they're stressed out, but you've got to think of like a studio level, you know, make everybody happy. It's not as easy to be that bespoke with each person, but it's like, make a system that you know, grows that. Like, as a producer, I really try to do that. I hear them, and it's like, I'll just do that for you. You know, it's like, I had a designer that was really stressed out, and I really wanted to get things that were bothering her out of her way. And it was like, oh, well, I hate having to hunt down design decisions that have been made throughout the team every week, because, you know, it's so stressful for me. I spend most of my Monday asking people what they're doing rather than being able to do my job. And I'm like, great, I can round up every, you know, pod leads design decisions for the last week, and we talk about them. And it was like that, just having that lifted off of her was like, wow, it's one thing I don't have to worry about. So really, it's the people that are the, you know, the producers, the studio heads. Those are the ones that you have the power to make it easy and fun. So
yeah, that's really good. Yeah, sometimes you get those signals and you kind of go like, yeah, that makes sense, but it's going to pass. It's fine, whatever. You blow it off.
And then you lose somebody. You know,
and then then it's like we should have just moved him and kept him and just filled that role some other way and kept the person rather than lose them. Yeah.
Because it is so, I mean, especially in the video game industry, the code that someone writes is so important for them to still be around to talk to them. Because I cannot even tell you how many times it's been like, yeah, well, that guy left the company and now no one can handle his code or fix it. And that's like 2 weeks of work for an engineer. Where it could be, oh, we just got him a position that he really likes or her. And now we can talk to her and she'll be like, oh yeah, this is what I did. And at least you have that point of communication. Losing talented people is devastating. So it's like, it's not worth it.
Yeah. And on the flip side, raising your hand and letting the people at your workplace that can affect change know where your head's at and what you need and what's going on. I've seen folks be really frustrated but not communicate what's going on or what they're dealing with in a way that's productive and helpful. That's really good. When you first got into doing this professionally, you were working at not at Disney. Where would you say you're working again?
Papaya was my first.
Papaya. Okay. I remember. I recognize the name.
Yeah. They don't exist anymore.
It happens. You have Papaya, and then you went to Disney, and you're now a senior producer, so you've progressed in your career, which is amazing. How did you early on, especially as you're learning, how did you go about getting up to speed, finding ways to contribute in this field that you were still learning, but also being asked to deliver on?
Honestly, it's just like chats like this with people that know the thing I want to know. That's it. That's as simple as
just hunting them down.
Yeah. I know. I mean, you don't even have to hunt them. People love to talk about what they know. So it takes like very little prodding to just be like, I need to know more about product management. What are like, you go to somebody that's really, really wonderful at their job and just like, tell me about it. Tell me what excites you about it. And how you do your job, and you'll get wonderful stuff that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Recently I've been doing stuff in music, and I needed to learn a lot about how things work now, because things have changed a lot in that space in the last 10 years. And it turns out everyone is telling you how it works on YouTube. People like to talk about what they do. They like to share expertise, and they like to kind of like, here's all the codes. Here's how we do it.
Yep.
Because usually they're trying to sell you something on the back end, but they have to give enough, which is usually all the useful stuff that you can learn on your own. And I find that, like saying, I don't know how to do this, or I need someone else to do it for me, is usually like a recipe for failure.
It depends on what you're doing, right? Like if I am an animator and I tried rigging in college and I hated it and it was awful, then I'm just going to be a really good animator. And I'm going to get a tech artist to do the rigging for me. So it's like you don't have to be a jack of all trades. It's good to know it. Like I said, if you're going to be an animator, at least know how to rig. But it's totally okay to have that not be your job. Don't force yourself to do things that you don't want to do, but also recognize, that is going to directly just account for the output. Like if you're, trying to get a job as an animator and they ask you if you do rigging and you're like, I don't ever want to do rigging, I hate it. Then maybe a guy who says, I love rigging and I also do animating, they'll probably get hired over you. But, just that's fine. Just keep it in mind. Like these are the things that make you more valuable as a resource. Yeah.
Yeah. I have another question, and this is, maybe you have to guess a little bit, but often when people ask me how to get into games or how to pursue something like this, one of the first pieces of advice I had was, well, you got to build a portfolio, but then you need to be willing to, or actually even better, go ahead and move to an area where that happens, where you can be in proximity and attend meetings and industry events and like introduce yourself and like put yourself out there and build connections. Do you think that now, as so much is moving remote, that that's necessary anymore? Like if someone lives in Alaska and they want to make games, do they need to move to LA or Seattle?
Yeah, no. I would never tell anybody to move to LA. A lot of my team is like, but again, you at a certain stages in your life, you get to kind of make calls you don't have the luxury of doing early on. So if you're first starting out, you could probably find a place that at least is going to do the job you're interested in wherever you are. There are game studios all over the planet. Or there's just people making apps or at least working in the technology that you want to learn. So start there and, get immersed. But then once you have the experience and the skills to back it up, you have the luxury of saying, no, I'm not moving, which is, again, another factor that will matter to people. Oh, this person won't move to LA and this person will, and they're both equally good. I'll probably pick the person that's going to move to LA. But that doesn't make it not possible at all. I have a lot of people on my team that are all over the place. I personally think that office time is kind of a waste. Mostly, there are certain experiences like basically brainstorming in front of a whiteboard, or honestly, with our games, going outside and playing together. Those are really valuable, but 8 hours a day in an office isn't. So long story short, you don't need to. It's just another factor that could make you more, viable as a person to be hired.
Yeah, I think.
But you've got to take, you got to take those risks to be a happy person. LA's not for everybody.
No, I'm in Southern California, not quite LA, but I'm moving next week to the East Coast because I finally, after 20 years, have a position where it doesn't matter where I live. And then suddenly the West Coast doesn't make as much sense. It's time to go.
Thankfully, as your growth as a human, that tends to match up. When you're younger and you're starting out, you're like, fine, I'll live in a shitty apartment. Fine, I'll put up with traffic and do this. But as you get older, you kind of balance out your life differently, and you say, I want to spend more time at home. I want to spend more time with myself, and then you can make those choices because you put in the time.
Right.
So it's like there's definitely a world where all of this balances out really nicely for people. We're getting there.
Yeah, and obviously the collaboration tools are so much better than they were 10 years ago, and in 10 years they're going to be even better, and more they're trying to approximate the experience of being in person. So I do think your advice is right. Like find things that are tangential but close to the thing you want to do.
Yeah,
that where you can build skills and learn, and eventually you can stack enough value where you can find the opportunity to kind of do it from wherever.
There's something very terrifying about going to a place and not knowing if you're going to make it there. And I don't think that we have to put that pressure on ourselves that early in life anymore.
Well, yeah. And I've moved to locations where the salary doesn't meet the cost of living, and you're making decisions and calls and trying to find other ways to make ends meet so that you can have the opportunity for years to get to a place where you can pay your bills. And that isn't, I hope we don't have to do it forever.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, if, to start out, like if you're a coder, then just like code for a local website for a little bit and see if you actually like coding. Because you imagine like moving out to do a thing and then you're like, I actually don't like this thing that I attached my life plan to. That's scary.
Yeah. I have one last question. And that is, if somebody is on the fence and they're like, I want to start making games, and I've kind of dabbled in it and I enjoy doing it, but I don't know, they just feel stuck. What would be how would you tell them to progress?
I mean, depends on what they're stuck on, right? Like, I'm stuck because I don't really get the engineering part, or I'm stuck because I'm not a great artist, or I'm stuck because I don't know if I'm good at design. I just feel like I would be because I play so many video games. Like whatever that is, it's like explore that a little bit, see if you can actually do something that's cool. And be honest with yourself. Like there are things I know I'm not very good at.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think I was an okay designer, but I am a much, much better producer.
Mm-hmm.
I still have opinions. Like I still have pretty strong opinions on like basic design principles. And if I see those broken, I really want a good reason why they're being broken. But that's not my job anymore. And like I wasn't that great at it. So I think it's is also like explore that and find out if it's actually something you're good at. And don't lie to yourself. Like, oh, this is fun and I made something really cool is where what you want to end up at the end.
Yeah.
Like not this was really hard and maybe I am good at it, maybe I'm not, or just.
And to your first point, am I willing to put in the work then to get to where I'm good enough and to add value?
And there are things that you'll find that you're good at and that it's easy for you, or at least it's easier for you than it is for other people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can read like for 4 or 5 hours a day and be a very, very happy person. So I can read a lot of work docs and design docs for games, and that makes me happy. And then I can also just read for fun. But not everybody wants to do that. So, don't sign on to a job that, it's something you can do, but you have to work extra hard at it because you don't like it as much. Like I've seen people get kind of stuck in that too. So just really be honest with yourself about what you like to do and what you're good at.
That's great advice. Cool. All right. Well, I think that's it for the podcast. You can hang out after this. We'll chat. But as far as the podcast goes, we're done. Thanks so much for being on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Awesome. Really good to just talk with you.
Yeah. All right.
Talking about games.
Me too. I love games. All right. Thank you.